Welcome everyone, today we have a new builds guide for Diablo 4, and today we'll be looking into the 3 best builds for the Necromancer for the Silver Slam level 20. As you can see behind me, we have notes for 3 different builds, including the Blood Mist and also Corpse Explosion for the Necromancer. And the second build will be the Mass Army Summoning build for the Necromancer with a change of the skeletons and also minions. We'll be testing out the changes of the nerf to the minions and also the buff to the Book of the Dead. And our final build, we're looking into the Thorns build for the Necromancer, and how much can we AFK farm with the change of the minions. Now I'm sure you guys have noticed the change of the layout. So looking behind me, the notes are now placed on our website for Diablo 4. I have always been wanting to make a website of my guides and also builds and also share my notes. So previously we were just looking at the aspects and also the skill trees. So in the future I want to make more builds guide that is more informative and also with additional meanings and also additional writings, to provide you guys with more information and also to be more clear with each of the builds. And if you guys didn't know, we do have a new website guide for Diablo 4. Over here I'll be including my notes, my guides, and also my tricks and some tips for Diablo 4. We'll go into everything that's related to Diablo 4, and also the relative official information, top meta builds, and also the latest tricks to get higher levels and also better Paragon levels. So make sure to come over to our website for the latest update and also more information for Diablo 4. Now coming over to the notes for the first build for the Necromancer. So this one will be testing out the Blood Mist and also the Corpse Explosion. As you guys have seen in the patch notes for the latest changes that we'll be testing, the Necromancer minions will die more often. And this is not the biggest deal for this build, but the bigger deal is the damage dealt by Corpse Explosion will be reduced. And this is going to be the massive factor, right? Because this entire build is going to revolve around us using the Blood Mist to trigger Corpse Explosion. And this also provides us with invulnerability and also additional damage. So what we'll do is, let's briefly go through the skill tree for the level 22 Necromancer, using 2 points of the skill points for the raid gnomes. So we'll go through the skills and also we'll go through the Book of the Dead. And then we'll come over here to look at some of the key aspects and also the good aspects we can use for this particular build. Now starting off with the build, we'll go with 1 point into Decompose and also its upgrades. This provides us with more corpses for the Corpse Explosion. Over here we'll go into 1 point into Healed Flesh to provide additional chance of generating corpses. We'll go with 2 points into the Bone Spear just because we don't have enough points, and we're also going to the upgrades for the Bone Spear to make enemies more vulnerable. And once we come over to the Macabre section, this is the biggest damage for this build. So 5 points into the Corpse Explosion and also its upgrade to provide us with more damage when enemies are vulnerable, stunned or slowed. Now we'll be going into 1 point into Blood Mist and also its upgrades. So this is the usual build. So Blood Mist will leave behind corpses, and also Blood Mist will have a cooldown reduction for the casting of the overpowered skills. This is not the biggest thing actually. Here we'll be going into 1 point into Grim Harvest to provide more essence. The bigger passive is that if we go into the Field Bad Death, we'll have a 12% damage increase for 4 seconds after consuming corpses. And this means we always have additional corpses to consume and also gets more damage with Corpse Explosion. Now in case you guys are wondering, that's all the skill points we have for level 22. Yes, we do not have many skill points, and this build will be using the skeletons and also the golems, so you only have 4 active spells, and the rest of the active spells you have your minions. Now because in the patch notes, the Book of the Dead have buffed with bonus stats, so this is why we kind of want to look into the Book of the Dead in more details, but for this particular build, it's pretty straightforward. We'll go with the skeleton rapiers, and also those rapiers will provide us with additional corpses. Similarly, we'll go with the bone mages, and similarly, as the bone mages die, they will leave us behind additional corpses and also fortify the player. And finally, we're going with the bone golem. We'll also be having the bone golem to drop additional corpses. So our build wants as many corpses as we can. As we consume corpses, we'll deal more damage. And also 1 point into the Heal Flash allows us to produce more corpses against the bosses. Now briefly going through the key and also good aspects for this particular build. Of course we'll go with the aspect of Explosive Blood Mist. This allows Blood Mist to trigger Corpse Explosion and also reduce its cooldown as this triggers. Other than that, we'll go with the good offensive aspects. We can go with the Blood Soak aspects, which make the Blood Mist leave behind a trail of damage and also give us 100% movement speed, because Blood Mist actually reduces our movement speed initially. And finally, if we want more corpses, we can go with the rotting aspects, which means when we cast Decompose, there's a chance of spawning more corpses. Now over here, I have listed additional aspects that you can go for, but most of all, we just need 1 of the offensive aspects or maybe 2 of those, and this will make the build work. Now again guys, because they have been a nerf to the damage of the blood corpses, I'm not sure if this build is still top meta for the for the Necromancer. So this is one of the things we want to test. How much of this build is nerfed, and also how good is this build? Can we still use this for the best Necromancer build? And what are the other builds that's available? So on the topic of looking into other builds, we also have a second build for the Necromancer, and this one will focus on summoning mass armies and also summoning skeletons and also everything else. So coming over to the skill trees over here, let's briefly talk about this. We'll be going into Decompose, and we'll be going into the upgrades for Decompose that minions will deal 10% more damage against enemy with Decompose. And similarly, we'll go with 1 point into Blight and its upgrades. So another 15% increase on minion damage against enemies with Blight, and those are pretty good debuffs for the minions. Now in order to provide additional damage for the minions, I decided to gain more corpses as we deal damage to the bosses and also enemies. So I decided to go with 3 points into Healed Flesh, so 12% chance of producing more corpses. And over here we're only going to 1 point into Corpse Explosion. So the Corpse Explosion is just here to trigger the corpses and provide us with a 12% damage overall. And this will provide us with more minion damage as well. Now over here, we'll also be going into 3 points into the Skeleton Warrior Mastery and also 3 points into the Skeleton Mage Mastery, which give us 45% damage and also 45% life. This is actually quite important, knowing that the minions will die more often. So we want to see how weak they are, and we also want to buff them up so they don't die as often. Now finally, we can go into 1 point into Corpse Tendril. This will group enemies together, provide us with a debuff that stuns enemies, and this can make use of the corpses we summon. So in this particular build, we can't really get much out of it. We can go with the skeletons, we can go with minions, but because we're only level 20, we do not get the Army of the Dead. And this actually takes away a lot of options to use Army of the Dead and also the legendary aspects. Now as for the Book of the Dead for this build, we'll go with the Skeleton Skirmishers, and the Skeleton Skirmishers will provide us with one additional warrior, Skeleton Warrior. And over here I'll be going with the Bone Mages, and also Bone Mages will use their life as bonus damage, dealing 40% more damage. And finally, because we're limited by the golems, we can't really choose any of the golems, so we just go with the Bone Golem, and Bone Golem will drop more corpses. So this is pretty straightforward, and as for the golems, because we're limited to level 20, we can't go with more of the perks. Now one of the core legendary aspects for this particular build will be the aspects of Frenzied Dead. So this is when our minions attack enemies, they will gain attack speed. So over here we can see that minion will gain 10 to 14% attack speed up to 42%. And this will be doubled to 84% if we're using a two-hand weapon for this particular aspect. Now the other good aspects that can go with this build is the utility aspects. So this one will provide us with a maximum of 2 additional skeleton warrior and also 2 additional skeleton mages for the 2 separate aspects. So if we come over here, you can see on the utility section, we can go with 2 additional warriors and also 2 additional mages. And finally, we can also go with the defensive aspects that reduce our damage taken by a percentage when we have more than 7 minions. And this is one of the reasons I decided to go with more of the skeleton warriors, and also we want more skeleton summons. Now our goal for this particular build is to test out how much the minions are nerfed compared to the previous beta, and also to see how much of the buff of the Book of the Dead is more relevant. Because in the patch notes they have said that, minions will be nerfed and they will die more often, so this means they're more squishy. What about the damage? And also what do we benefit from the Book of the Dead? So this is one of the things we want to be testing out. Now coming over to our final build. So this is going to be the AFK Thorn Necromancer farming build. If you haven't seen our video, definitely check it out. So this particular guide is going to focus on providing us with more Thorn of the minions. And this is about the Necromancer player actually not really doing anything. So we're not really here to cast any spells. We're just here to use the Thorn of the Necromancer and also the minions to do damage while we're AFK. And this will provide us with more loots. We do have a video to talk about this one, and I'll have the link attached for you guys. So let's briefly go through the skills for this build. We'll be going with Hemorrhage, and also Hemorrhage provides us with additional Blood Orbs. There's not much of a difference because my goal is to stand there, so having any points over here doesn't really matter that much. Over here we'll go with 2 points to the Bone Spear and also upgrades. Again, I'm not really going to cast my spells, I'm going to try to AFK and try to kill the monsters by standing still. Now coming over to the Macab section, this is when we get a ton of Thorn for the Necromancer, and also this is where we're going to perk into the Skeleton Warriors. The Skeleton Warriors will be the biggest factor over here, so we're going to come over to the Book of the Dead, and you can see the Skeleton Warrior will provide more life with the Shield Defenders, and the Skeleton Warrior will get 50% of the Thorn of our character, and this makes him very durable, and this also makes him, more offensive with the Thorns. Now, because for the majority of the time we'll be standing still, so we're going to take the Death's Embrace, and this reduces the damage taken and also deal more damage to enemies. We'll also be going with the Skeleton Mastery for the mages to provide them with more damage and also more life. Finally, we'll also provide us with the Death's Reach, so when enemies are range away from us, when we're standing still, the minions can also deal 12% more damage. And that's pretty much for the build. Because we only have 22 points, we can't go perk into more passives, but those should be fairly relevant, and as long as we can survive, we can be killing monsters while not even playing the game. We can just stand there and get a lot of loot. Now, coming back to the Book of the Dead for the other two summons, we'll go with the Shadow Mage, and also the Shadow Mage fires additional projectiles. This is not the biggest deal, and there's a lot of options you can go with. You can also go with a Fortify to make it more durable. And as for the upgrade for the Bone Golem, we'll go with a Bone Golem that also shares 50% of the Thorn, and this will make the Bone Golem more durable and also deals more damage. Now, I'm sure you guys know the key offensive aspects for this one will be the Thorn deals AoE damage around you. So if we come over here to that legendary aspects, you can see the Needle Flare aspects. This allows us to do AoE damage with the Thorns we have, and this is actually quite important for both for the Barbarians and also for the Necromancer for the Thorn build. Now, I have also listed a number of the good aspects we can use over here. So as for the offensive aspects, we can go with aspects of Inner Calm, which provide us with 30 bonus damage when we stand still. If we want to survive, we can go with the defensive aspects of the Crowd Sage, which allows us to auto-heal when we stand next to enemies. So I'll show you the aspects over here. This one is up to 30% bonus damage, and this is a really good multiplier. And over here, when next to enemies, we'll gain up to 50% life regen, and this almost makes us unkillable in most of the early beta. Now finally, we can go with additional utility if you do find those particular perks. So if you find maximum skeletons or maximum skeleton mages, those are also really good, because the more summons you have, the stronger they get, the less likely they will be dying, and the more thorns you get. So notice how the second build and also the third build actually make use of the summons. And this means that if you go with the second build and also the third build, you pretty much just have one legendary aspect difference. And this makes it really good for us to try multiple builds, because we only have 2 days for the Silver Slam, and we know the drops of the legendaries are really low. So I want to limit how many legendaries you're looking for and give you guys the best chance to test different builds. Now hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know guys, what is gonna be your build for Necromancer in the Silver Slam? Are you gonna play the Necromancer in the Silver Slam? And also what are the builds are you gonna be most excited to try with? And of course, remember to come over to our website, because I'll be preparing for different builds and also theory crafting for Paragon levels for all the classes that is coming. We're also looking into the ways to get higher levels and also faster Paragon levels into the game after the launch. Now, if you guys haven't subscribed, it is a really good time to do so, because I'll be covering tons of Diablo 4 related topics and also videos and also guides. We'll be looking to the top meta builds, non-meta builds, leveling up, and also Paragon tricks. We're also looking to the latest events and also official updates, and also changes to different characters and also different builds in the game. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and also turn the notification on, because a lot of you who are watching the videos have not subscribed. You can see 80% of the viewers who are watching our videos have not subscribed, so make sure you subscribe to stay tuned for the latest update for Diablo 4.